let's get started, and a warm good evening and welcome to everyone who is logging in either through this webinar or through Facebook, where this is also streaming live on the Indic Book Club Facebook group. It is at facebook.com/groups/Indic Book Club, all one word. So you can join from any of these two medium, and you can send in your questions through the Q&A button that you should have on your on this webinar link. If you see at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A link. So you can send in your questions, and once we are finished with our chat, then we'll take these Q&A one by one. So welcome, Vivek. It's a pleasure, delight to host you on this Indic Book Club author Q&A, and it's a double pleasure for me to do this and chat with you. I think in 2018 June we had done this when you had come to Bangalore for the launch of your book Urban Naxals, the making of Buddha in a traffic jam, at the Crossword bookstore, and it was a near riot. If I recall correctly, there were literally hundreds of people crowding the stores, standing in the aisles and everywhere. And what was supposed to last for about 45 minutes to an hour went on for more than 2.5 hours. You had to delay your departure. And there was a line of people waiting to get their books signed. And I think the store ran out of books. They said they had never sold so many copies of a single book in a single day until as much as they did with Urban Naxals. So now, when you said that you were coming up with the next book, Who Killed Sastry, basically from the maker of, you made this movie in 2019, the Tashkent Files, and this is a fabulous book. I think if I can, if people can see this.
They can see only if it is in front of your face. Oh, no.
Okay, so I'll try and show it again, but this book came out a couple of months back, and I'm delighted to host you, Vivek.
Thank you very much. It's always like coming to family. I never treated myself separate from Indic Academy, Indic Book Club. In fact, my whole journey started when I got a bunch of books from Indic Book Club. At that time, I didn't know people personally, and they just landed in my house, 2017 or something like that, 16 maybe, perhaps, yeah. So that's how I got introduced, and I said, aha, even people run book clubs right now. And then I got to meet wonderful people, thanks to Hari especially. In fact, see, a lot of people talk about success, and if I was a 35, 40-year-old young boy, I would have said, aha, yes, I got this success. But now I'm at a stage in life where I have understood the real meaning of success. See, success is never independent. Success is never of a person. Anybody who thinks it's of a person is absolutely wrong. And this world has been celebrating people. People are just medium. You know, there are lots of permutations and combinations, lots of associations, collaborations, things which work together to make something happen, to make something successful. So I think it was victory of an idea. And I would like to break it down into 2-3 ideas. It wasn't just one idea. If people think Urban Naxals was an idea, no, it wasn't an idea. I think the first idea was that I decided to treat it not like a film, Buddha in a traffic jam. And I decided to treat it just like an idea and take it to schools and universities and colleges, you know. And I knew there was resistance, and we fought it. And the second idea was when Hari Kiran, he one day out of the blues, for no reason, he called me and he said, why don't you pen down all these and very hesitantly I went there thinking this guy is wasting his money and time and everything, you know. Once I reached there, I wrote 3 chapters like in no time, because it was very easy. They just came out. But then I got stuck, and it was a long journey, 1.5 years, I think, almost. And that time I was traveling a lot in India. And as I kept traveling and meeting people, that's why you see the book started in a different fashion, and slowly you see Urban Naxals turns around and becomes more like travelogue plus meeting people plus, my conversation.
I think you start the book by describing one, very cold December night. You were and family were traveling somewhere near in Rajasthan,
Yeah,
and
true.
some agitation stopped, had blocked the road, and I think
Gujar agitation, yeah.
correct, correct.
And we lost. And so then that idea merged with Hari's idea. And then when it came to launch the book, I think it was lots of minds put together. I remember Hari got some 8 or 10 people, maybe more, in Delhi. I still remember, to have a meeting what to do with this book, how to go about it. And by that time, I think the major publishing houses had made some excuses or the other, and everybody sat down. And I think it was very collaborative work. Everybody collectively from Indic Academy. I remember from Delhi, representatives and Dimple, and there were lots of people. And everybody put in their ideas. Later on, I again met these people, and slowly it started getting formalized how to go about it. And then Hari and I, we somehow figured out, okay, if we go to, I was planning to go to US. I said, if I club these two things, and a whole lot of things happened. And we traveled city by city by city because we had no other way of doing things. At that time, Garuda, uh, even now, I don't know, they had no distribution in bookshops, and they were new. They didn't even know how to market the book, and they left it to us. So I think it was a success of Indic Academy, Indic Book Club, whatever. I don't even know the distinction between so many Indic branches. For me, it's just Indica. That's it. So between them and my foundation, I am Buddha Foundation, a team of 3, 4 very young people who coordinated everything for me. So I think that's how the success, and above everything else, I think it was the success of an idea. And the idea was that all this thing was happening in India for a long time. The leftist domination of culture and education, and how middle class, non-English speaking, non-convent educated young boys and girls had to face this problem in India. They connected somehow, and the youth of India, they suddenly pushed the book. And that's why, if you see, even in Bangalore, when we came, I know it was sort of a stampede, and it was full of young boys and girls. It was mostly young boys and girls. So they owned the book, and they made it successful. So I would say it was a collective success, not just one. You can't pinpoint that this is where the success lies.
Correct, correct. A lot of things came together to make that book a success, and so therefore, when you came up with the Tashkent Files, which is a movie that, in a fictionalized setting, seeks to put out a lot of facts that have been there, and they've been available basically to everyone for more than 54 years. When Lal Bahadur Shastri, as second prime minister, had gone to Tashkent, he had signed the peace accord on the 10th of January 1966, and that very night, in the early hours of 11th of January, he died. And you talk about that the idea for this movie was with you for a long, long time. It was not like you woke up one morning and you decided to make a movie. And you talk about the kind of struggles you had to face to get even basic information out from the government, from the archives, about the circumstances of his death. So I'm surprised with the RTI now for so many years, with the event, with his death having taken place so many years back. How is it that there is no information, that you had, found it so difficult to find information?
See, all of us, it's not that we live in different countries, we live in the same country, same society, you know that. In India, doing research is a nightmare. It is actually a nightmare. I remember once I had gone to US. When I went there to study, my childhood friend used to live in US somewhere. I had no clue where he lived. I had no idea absolutely where he lived. Um, so I just called, that time operator used to be there. So I just called the operator, and I said, I had a childhood friend and I haven't seen him in 10, 15 years, and he lives somewhere in US. and I gave the name. That's all. You won't believe it. After a couple of months, I could locate him. He used to live
Wow.
in Adirondack Mountains up north, on the eastern coast. And I actually visited him. I went to his house. I had to take a bus and all those things. And he was living there at that time illegally, hiding in some motel, running some motel, and doing his engineering. Now today in India, if you are driving and if you don't know anybody and if you have to find the address of a house, it's a nightmare. You can't reach there. It's almost impossible. So we somehow have not cataloged things. We have not archived things, and if you have to deal with the government, then it's a very big nightmare. I mean, I think people should visit National Archive. They have everything. They have millions and millions of files. But the problem is attitude. The kind of researchers who go there are not investigative researchers. The researchers who go there are just these PhD students and people like that who just have to go and copy things and fill pages, and write some dissertation or some kind of a thesis, but they are not investigators. In fact, I was talking to their director and you won't believe me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just doing what Sastry, this thing. I don't know if I've written or not." I personally, when I met him. And I said, "I'm doing investigation." He said, "Are you a journalist?" I said, "Yeah, sort of. You can call it, I'm a filmmaker." He said, "But what are you doing here? I've never seen any journalist coming here." And if you go to the archives in US or in any advanced country in the world, it's full of journalists.
Correct.
Even the students of journalism, they do that. So it was a nightmare. RTI, let me tell you honestly, I've done it for this Tashkent Files, and I'm doing it a lot for the Kashmir Files also. But now for the Kashmir Files, and I want to confess, I'm not doing it thinking that I'll get some information, because I definitely won't get information. I'm just doing it as a formality so that later on nobody questions my seriousness about the project. And at least I have on record that I've filed so many RTIs and nobody has replied even once. Or they reply, what they do is they direct you, go to archives, go here, go there. They try to avoid. Tell me one thing, RTI has been for so many years. Have you ever seen anything worthwhile coming? Have you seen anything getting exposed? We had so many scams, so many issues. You never get information.
Somehow, I think our system, the political bureaucratic system, has figured out a way even to survive the spotlight that RTI was supposed to shed on the inner workings of government. I think they have found a way to manage even that, which is a tragedy of sorts. So when you decided to write this book, was it a conscious thought that I'm making this movie? Once this movie comes out, I want to document the journey of the movie, or it came as an afterthought once the movie had come out and it became such a unexpected commercial success?
You want me to give you a very honest answer? It might bring some inside details which I have never spoken about. Don't want to.
Sure, please
But
go ahead.
see, I'll tell you how it happened. Even before we started making the film, I had umpteen of research, lots of research, and that is the time when with Garuda, Sankrant had met me, and he actually few times he met me, and he said, "So what are you doing about it?" I said, "What will I do with this research? I'll perhaps put it in a book form, and I should do it so that people know." And he was supposed to do this book. I first offered it to him. He do that, and he committed to do it. But then I don't know. I felt that after doing Urban Excels and creating this, they should have at least appreciated and given some kind of a token remuneration, saying, or advance, whatever, even if 11 rupees, saying that yes, we acknowledge, because it takes a lot of effort to write a book like this. It's not fiction that I sit and write fiction. Even fiction is, I don't want to undermine it. It's a great work, but here it's more than just writing a book, because you need help, you need people, you need documentation. It's tough job. And then convert the complex research, everything, into very simple thing. People are not understanding what I am doing. If somebody asks me, what's your contribution to this narrative? I would say I'm taking very, very complex engineering and I'm making it so simple that even a housewife can handle that machine. So it's very user-friendly stuff I am writing. And I'm deliberately writing that simple sentences. I always, if there's a word which is long and it's difficult, I go to thesaurus and I just find the simplest possible, and then I bring that, introduce. That's just a lot of work. But then I realized that um, I I somehow felt that it wasn't valued. And last minute, it came last minute. By the time I had put a lot of effort together, and that's when Bloomsbury contacted me. I don't know how they got the information, what they knew, and they contacted me and they said, if you're doing something like this, we are here, we'll help you, and all those kind of things. So I called Sankrant and I told him this is happening. I definitely, if we have created this publishing house together, so I think we should do it. But then they didn't know how to go about it professionally. That's it. And that's how the Bloomsbury came into picture. And then I put the whole thing together and they were flexible. I told them I'll finish the film and then I'll start writing. Even after that, I took a lot of time. So that's how Bloomsbury came into picture. And this was far, I mean, much before even Delhi riots, people knew that D for Delhi.
Since we are on that topic, I have to, I was thinking of asking you this later, but since we have, we have broached this subject, I'll ask you. Now, I did some looking up into, and I wrote one article also that, if you look at some of the major publishers in India, and Bloomsbury is one of them. And if you look at some of the books that have come out in the last 2.5 years, what has been their general slant? And fact of the matter is I found Bloomsbury to be the publisher that has published the most books with a sympathetic right-wing narrative, if I may call it that. They have their other, left voices also, but they have given the most space to right-wing authors. Then this controversy over the Delhi riots book came out, and there were several right-wing authors, that we heard about from Twitter and other places who said they're going to withdraw their book. And I said, I'm not sure whether that's the right thing to do. I can understand the anger and the anguish that people would feel that at this, censoring of a book that had gone through review and editing and legal vetting and everything. You chose to go with the Bloomsbury, right? So was there any pressure on you? Did you feel at any point that you should not publish with Bloomsbury and go with another publisher? And what was the whole, I'm sure this would have come up as a discussion, as a topic.
Okay, yeah, I don't shy away talking about it. In fact, I never spoke about it, but to me, this is a very sacred place, and I treat Indic Academy as a very nice platform. So therefore, I should be speaking with utmost honesty and sincerity, and without mincing my words, I would like to put it on record that the book actually started selling a few months before even Delhi riots was in the picture. Even before it was commissioned by Bloomsbury. Yeah. So it started and pre-orders had started. Everything was done and it came out in the market. Because of COVID, everybody wanted to lie low and it was decided the book we'll do on 2nd of October. So Bloomsbury decided that let it just go to the bookshops and all. Slowly market is opening up, first August, then first September, like that. Slowly it was opening up and they said, let it happen. And then we'll launch it properly. In fact, I had discussions with Hariji also and that, okay, we'll do book launch whenever the right time comes. And then one day, Monica called me, Monica Arora, and she said, Vivek ji, I want you to be the chief guest and give the keynote speech in my book's inaugural. And I said, okay, I had no problems. So I was part to that. And as it was happening, I think when the function was going on, she got a letter from Bloomsbury that they are withdrawing, right? And when I figured out why, of course, they gave the excuse that they used their logo without even informing them, which is truth also. And you won't believe it, it's on records. I'm not saying it. I actually tried my best to, sort this out. I fought with Bloomsbury, with their managing director. I wrote to their the main guy in London. I wrote him a couple of letters and I sent him a memo. I sent him a WhatsApp message. I did lot of stuff. I'm not just a Twitter activist. A lot of people don't know. I actually put in a lot of groundwork. I actually put in, like you do or everybody does. So I tried everything, my best to put it together. I spoke to Monica ji. Then slowly she was advised, she agreed to speak to them, and they were willing to do something about it. She agreed with me. She officially agreed with me on WhatsApp and on call. But then next morning she called me that, Vivek, sorry, and we fixed a Zoom meeting. We created a link and everything. But last minute she said, I've been advised by people not to do this. And just few minutes after that, then Garuda announced a book, and then rest you know that. Now, I don't know how can you withdraw a book which has already been sold and people have bought it. What do I do? If I withdraw it, where do I go? What do I do? I have no clue. I have no idea. I don't know how I can do that. Yes, I can do posturing on social media saying that, like a lot of people announced whose books were never published. They said, we are withdrawing. Withdrawing what? You don't even have a contract with Bloomsbury. What are you withdrawing? Just because you met somebody and they said, okay, when you write the book after 3 years or 5 years, then we will publish it. And you are saying I'm withdrawing. So there were a lot of posturing was going on. You know how Twitter functions. All these people, honestly, let me use this word, were bullshitting. Everybody was just doing 240 word stuff. On my 10-minute debate for 1.5 weeks, I ran focused campaign against people who actually blocked this book. William Dalrymple. I ran against all these people, Atish Tasir. These are relying on YouTube. I did with various people. I invited Abhijit Ayyar Mitra, Anand Ranganathan. I got all these people together. I did so many Zoom meetings. Abhijit Mazumdar, Sanjeev Sanyal's wife, I got her, some Smita and everybody, and I spoke. I said, it's time for us to fight collectively. But the problem, today, Abhinav, it's a real problem, and it bothers me a lot, which is that we don't want to put any work. We don't want to sacrifice anything. We don't want to come out of our comfort zone. We don't want to fight. We don't want to piss off anybody. We just want to fight against one invisible enemy, a hypothetical enemy, and just blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, some boy wrote that I went to Oxford store and they are not selling Delhi riot books and I am boycotting Oxford stores. Somebody then wrote under his tweet, somebody told him he had taken a picture, and if you put these kind of things, then 100 people would have gone and thrown stones at Oxford stores for no reason. Somebody wrote to him, hey, Garuda Prakashan doesn't sell in bookshops. So forget Oxford, you won't even get the shop next to Garuda's office. Now, the problem is people don't know anything, they are misinformed. So as far as the book Delhi Riots, it came it came later on. It had nothing to do with my book. The people who have withdrawn their books are the books which were never published or which were going to be published. For example, Sanjeev Dikshit's book, I wrote the foreword for that book. And that book was supposed to come in December or whenever. So it was easy for him. Imagine if my book was not published. It was not in the hands of people. If people hadn't paid money to buy it. Right? A book is not just a book. A lot of work goes. It was 2-3 years of work, 1 year of work for editors. I know how I worked with editors because it was a technical book. A lot of referencing wasn't there. We found it. A whole lot of work has gone into that.
Correct.
So then these people who withdrew their book, they started running a campaign that Vivek Agnihotri should also withdraw his book, boycott his book, ban his book and all that. They started, So I know all these people who are running this campaign. I don't know why, how it will help them. In fact, what they don't realize is if they are going to attack me more, I am definitely smarter than them. I am going to use it to my advantage, which I have not done till date, and I'll convert the whole thing in my favor. But I don't want to get into this thing. So we have decided to let's sell on its own. And we will do hangama whenever we have to do. Let the markets also open up. People have started their lives immediately after COVID. Let people get settled. We'll do it after Diwali. But the good news is this, that without any visibility, without doing anything, the hard copies and bookstores, they have got repeat orders from almost every single place. And through Amazon and through digital, they are getting repeat orders. And Bloomsbury is very happy with the way book is selling at this stage. In fact, they were not expecting anything better than this. So it's definitely, and I'm sure after Diwali, once I start doing more stuff on this, people will get to know more about it.
Interesting. A lot of, I think, information, insights that I think a lot of us did not know. And this is a topic that I think we probably need to have a separate, more focused debate on this, because there are a lot of issues that you have alluded to and talked about that I think deserve I think a more detailed discussion. But coming back to this book, Who Killed Shastri?
Yeah.
I find it most unbelievable that a prime minister dies in a foreign country. His wife, she cries that her husband has been murdered. The wife of the prime minister is saying that conduct an autopsy, conduct an investigation. No autopsy is conducted, no investigation is conducted. And people still insist to this day, some people, that anyone who claims that this was anything but a natural death is a conspiracy theorist. How do you explain this?
Where's the conspiracy? If you look at the center of the book, the main question is postmortem. How is it believable that the Prime Minister of India, the second Prime Minister, dies in a foreign country immediately after the war and during Cold War, and he dies under suspicious circumstances, where KGB per se goes and arrests their own butlers and Indian butler and Indian cook. Indian ambassador, Mr. T.N. Kaul, has been he's being asked many questions, and despite that, we never went in for postmortem. That, I think, was the biggest blunder we have ever made. Where is the conspiracy in that? Second thing is, for the Prime Minister's death, if the country demands an inquiry, we have not set up even one inquiry commission. And all this, third thing is, all this happened. There are so many questions I have raised in the book, like 2 medical reports. Till date, nobody has been able to answer that. A whole lot of things. But the problem is, all this was happening when the Prime Minister's office was getting bribes in rubles, when the ministers, journalists, intelligence people, they were all on the payroll of KGB. When all this you put together, that is a conspiracy. Not that this is a conspiracy theory. That is a conspiracy, which now the question should be asked, who were the conspirators who were conspiring against India? That is the question the book raises, not that this is a conspiracy theory raising questions about Shastri's death.
So this thing about, Indian politicians, journalists, media houses, bureaucrats being on the payroll, this is something that you write about in the latter part of your book. And I think you quote two Soviet defectors. One of them was Yuri Bezmenov, if I remember, and the other one was the Mitrokin archives. And these are literally tens of thousands of pages that were taken out of the KGB's archives themselves. They were then translated, transcribed, and published in books. And there are, I think, basically you say that, or maybe it's a chapter in the book that says entire India was for sale.
Yeah.
And when the Mitrokin archives were published, I think about more than 15 or 20 years back, I don't remember when, apart from a couple of headlines in a few newspapers, it did not arouse any other interest or outrage or investigations from anyone. It was allowed to die a quiet death. So the question now arises is that in 1970, I believe there were several parliamentary discussions around Shastri's death. And Swaran Singh, a minister in the Mrs. Indira Gandhi cabinet, answered questions, including one question, and this is something I wanted to talk a little bit about. This is beyond belief to me. So, according to eyewitness accounts, Shastri came over at about, I think, shortly after midnight, and he had to walk a fair distance. He knocks on the door of, I think, Dr. Chug, his personal doctor. He says he's feeling uneasy, and they go back to the room and they find they can't detect a pulse. And shortly after, they give an intramuscular injection, and shortly after that, he's declared dead. Now, I think Swaran Singh, the minister, when asked why didn't he ring the bell, why did he walk? He said that perhaps Shastri did not want to disturb anyone and thought he would walk in the state he was supposed to his doctor's room. And it was, I think, the opposition leader Raj Narayan who later went on to defeat Mrs. Indira Gandhi, by a huge margin and all that. He asked these questions. How is it that we don't hear about these things? I hadn't heard of this till I read about this in your book.
See, the problem is that, I don't know, do you know any journalist who goes through parliament records? All we record is that what Rahul Gandhi did, how he went and hugged Modi. These are, we see, we have become a theater now. It's like we believe in theatrics. That's all. And we have been a country of melodrama. So we have just picked up the melodramatic parts, but we don't want to go deep into it. I think you will find lots of insights. If somebody, in fact, somebody just goes through parliament discussions in last 70 years, you'll understand why this country is wherever it is right now. But we don't do that. Nobody, because parliament also conducts lots of serious discussions. It's not just 0 hour, and it's not just when Mr. Modi comes. And so we did that. We picked up all the parliament and there was no hype around it. They were lying quietly, and I won't give the source, but then I sourced it. It's very difficult to get it from parliament itself, unless and until, yeah, that is also again a complication. But I used a source and I got whatever I wanted. And when we were reading that, all this, I didn't, honestly, trust me, nobody, so many people have written about Shastri's thing. Nobody wrote about these two reports, about the signature thing, that the Russian report has different signatures, Indian report has different signatures. How is it possible that the death report, I picked it up from the parliament, and it was presented by nobody less than R.N. Singh, who was one of the veteran parliamentarians. Okay, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. These were, whatever you want to say, but these were very serious members of parliament. They were great parliamentarians. They did their homework. And unlike today that every Tom, Dick and Harry goes and shouts anything, at that time I have seen these people have very, very well supported arguments and all those kind of things. And very sadly, besides this, what the government of India filed in the parliament, there is no death report of Shastri, the medical report.
There is none.
Yeah. If you see, what I picked up is from the discussions, from the arguments, but when you put the white paper, with the white paper, there is no, I've written, I think in the book also, I don't remember correctly, there's so much of material. I think, yes, I have written, with the white paper. See, day-to-day discussion is something, then government presents the white paper, every annexure has to be documented, it's got no medical report. The reason was, then it makes you get suspicious that, is it because there were two different reports?
And you also write that as per protocol, there are these regular, blood pressure and pulse and other medical parameters that are recorded of the Prime Minister. They are kept in a logbook, and that logbook is the property of the government of India.
Yeah.
In the case of Lal Bahadur Shastri, it is missing.
Yeah.
It is simply missing.
If we have Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's logbook, if we have Indira Gandhi's logbook, then how come we don't have Shastri's this thing?
And people still want to insist anyone saying that this death was anything but natural is a conspiracy theorist. But be that as it may, I want to ask you, this is a fascinating thing. To the extent I want you to tell me as much as you can about this. In 1977, after the Janata Party came to power, there was still not an inquiry, but there was a parliamentary committee to which some people were called to provide testimony. Among them were two people who were there in the house when Lal Bahadur Shastri died at Tashkent. One was Dr. Chugh, his personal physician. The other one was his cook. I think it was Ramnath, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, yeah. His
So
personal assistant, yeah.
personal assistant, who was a cook who did not cook Shastri's last meal, by the way, which is another story all by in itself. The cook who cooked Shastri's last meal was the personal cook of the Indian ambassador to the Soviet Union, which is again very, very interesting, but we'll leave that for the moment.
Yeah.
So these two people were called to give testimony, and on the same day, you have Dr. Chugh who's coming in a car, and his car is rammed by a truck, and everyone except one child dies in that car accident. And mind you, 1977, Delhi was not such a crowded place that there were, lakhs and lakhs of vehicles on the roads.
Hmm.
Then Ramnath, he visits the house of where Srimati Lalita Shastri used to live. He meets her, and according to eyewitness accounts, he tells us something like, "बहुत दिनों से बोझ था, आज सब बोल देंगे." He steps out of the house in front of the late prime minister's where his widow lives, and a government bus runs him over. His legs are amputated, he loses his memory, and a few months later he dies. Yeah, when you first read and found this out, what was your reaction?
My first reaction was that what kind of a country we are, you know. If this something like this had happened in US, Oliver Stone would have made 10 films out of this, and they would have written so many books and so many articles. Anil Shastri has been saying about this for a long time, but this is a coincidence, and the bigger coincidence is that there was indeed a parliamentary committee. There indeed a lot of people spoke to it. These people went to give their testimonies, but there's no documentation with the parliament about this. Nobody has an idea where is that report, what happened to that. Nobody even cares about it. So this is how we have run this country for so long.
It reminds me of when the Janata Party came to power, it instituted a commission of inquiry to look into the excesses committed during the emergency. There was I think, a Jain commission report, and for almost, I think, 20 years, no one could find a copy of the report till someone managed to smuggle one copy out, photocopy it, and then how we know that 900-page report exists, and certain very distinguished personalities came in for very harsh criticism, and it was recommended that I think criminal action be instituted, but that's a different story. So one question is that you ask, the title of your book is in itself a question: who killed Shastri? You make the movie and you write about the struggle with the climax, right? You cannot just treat a movie like a documentary that, it starts and it finishes. A movie has to have a climax. Yet, what I really liked was that you did not take the easy way out by saying, some unknown, so can you tell us a little bit about what went into your mind when you were thinking about the climax of the movie?
Oh, it was, I've written it in detail. I've written in the book
Yes.
about that dilemma, The thing is, if I, if I say, okay, this is who has done it, who killed Shastri, so and so killed Shastri, or whatever, then I think it's not right, because I'm no judge, I'm no lawyer, I'm not any kind of an inquiry commission, and it's not correct on my part to say anything like this, because how can I do that? I'm not Sherlock Holmes, So I have to conclude how I see what made it happen. So if you see in the movie, also in the book, I have extended the same thought. I think that most of the things we don't know in this country and lots of denied is because we have no right to truth in this country. Even now, even today, despite everything in this country, we don't have right to truth about anything.
Why is that? People want to know the truth, but why is it that we have become so conditioned to not, pushing to find the truth out? Why is it that that our political class has been so successful in teaching us to not demand the truth? Why is it?
See, because I don't know. I don't want people coming after me and saying, hey, you said that. So I'm just saying it as one of the interpretations. There can be millions of them. But I think, with my limited understanding, that we are not taught to put emphasis on truth. There are there are two ways you can train a mind to seek something. One, what you learn from your family and everywhere. So in the society, in Hindu society especially, truth is a very personal thing. Truth is some ultimate truth. You do certain things, then you find the truth. There are many ways of finding that truth. So it's very philosophical in a way. It's very metaphysical. So a lot of people think truth is this, and it's got nothing to do with the system, and it's got nothing to do with the government. So truth has been considered very personal. But then in a democracy, in a system, truth is also an organized thing. Truth is something, when you do A, B, C, D, step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, it will lead you to truth, which the Western societies are very concerned about. They are not concerned about philosophical or metaphysical truth. They are not into spiritual truth. They don't care about it. They care more about the systematic truth, that the system is lying to me. And that becomes like, for them, it's a matter of life and death. And they are trained in school. They are trained in their offices. They are trained wherever they go. They are trained that it is the responsibility of your government to deliver truth. I'm not saying there are lots of crooks there also. Their system is also corrupt. I'm not saying that all the times they deliver truth, but at least they know it is their fundamental right to demand truth. You tell me, in which school or before my film, people had no idea that truth is your right. It's your democratic right. Because without truth, there cannot be any justice. Without truth, there cannot be any liberty. Without truth, there cannot be any freedom. Without truth, there cannot be anything. If I don't know the truth.
So, given that our education system is the way it is, and I don't see any hope that it will, ever change or reform, what is your message to people, to youngsters who want to, to try and make a difference, right? So, where does their journey begin? How should they go about it?
Okay. In a very utopian world, I would appeal to all school students and PTAs and Parent Teachers Association to go on an indefinite strike and put the pressure on the government, unless you start teaching us the true history and the true things, and teach us about us, not about them, not about others. Teach us about us. I want to know where I have come from. My first concern should be, who am I? And see, this life is what? What is success? Success is your self-esteem. If you have 10 rupees in your pocket and you have great self-esteem, you'll walk like a successful person. You can have billions and billions of dollars in your pocket, and if you have very low self-esteem, you will walk like an unsuccessful person. So success is in your mind. A country becomes successful when you have collective success. When most of the people in the country feel they live in a successful place, if nothing else, this system gives me opportunity to be successful. But in India, you'll find majority of the people feel there is no opportunity to be successful because nobody recognizes my talent. Why is it so? Why we are creating people of low self-esteem? The reason we are creating people of low self-esteem is because they do not understand where they belong. The day they understand the wisdom, the knowledge, and the greatness of our own thinking, which is so unique to us. For example, yesterday I made a video. Okay, there is a concept which has no parallel in the world in any language. Okay, which is shunyata. Okay, people will call it in English, they will say nothingness. Okay, but nothingness or emptiness assumes that there's a bottle or there is a box. There ought to be things inside that, and there are no things inside that. Nothingness also assumes that there is something ought to be there and there is nothing. Nothingness means you take out whatever is inside or things like that, you know. But Shunyata is not that. So the West has always believed in things. Without thing, there is no Western thinking. And we have believed in Shunyata, which has got nothing to do with the thing, like sky. You go and look for the sky. Where is the sky? There is no sky. There is absolutely no sky. And that's exactly what our great rishis and our scholars have been writing for so long. There is no sky. You are the sky. West believes sky is the limit. We believe, no, we are the sky. We are part of that Brahman. We are that sky. You know, Tattva Masi, Dawa. Now, these are great learnings and they're so simple. So what I'm saying is, and today quantum physics believes that things come out of nothing. Sorry, I just got in a tangent. But what I'm trying to say is the plurality, the inclusiveness, the liberalism, the adjustment, the tolerance, the, you know, sacrifice, these great concepts of India, nobody knows about it. Once they start knowing about it, the children, the great people we have had, the great literature we have had, how we created music, the science of music, the science of theaters, all these modern things, then they will feel proud of this country, then they would have great self-esteem, and then we will become a successful country.
I wait for that day when our schools will actually start talking about the Mahavakyas from our tradition and our culture. But I want to move to, you know, the third part of what I intended to, which is that I think you alluded somewhere to the Kashmir Files. Now, obviously, I can assume where this is going. Tell us a little bit about it. Firstly, what is the Kashmir Files project? Because when you talk of Kashmir, you can talk of the situation in Kashmir in 1948 as it emerged. You can talk about the situation in Kashmir in January 1990, where, you know, lakhs of Kashmiri Hindu Pandits were thrown out, killed, massacred out of their homes of thousands of years. Or you can talk about the Kashmir of August 2019, when for the first time since independence, it was actually integrated into the Indian Union. What is your project about?
Okay, so in fact, this whole journey started somewhere. I realized that after 1947, the entire country got partitioned. And slowly we started living our lives and the partition was over. Logistically also, and also in people's minds, except for people who had to suffer during partition. Today's generation has no even clue about what partition was. It's a far, it's just long back it happened, and they don't even care about it unless and until they're taught in schools, you know. Your children, my children have no imagery of partition in their mind. But in Kashmir, partition never ended. Till date, even till date, it never ended. The suffering, the pain, the separation, you know, the call for partition, a new country, it kept happening. It got repeated every week, every day, every hour, if not on the ground, at least in their minds. Second thing was that Kashmir is, without Kashmir, Bharatvarsh is nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's like, look at America without its greatest universities. Nothing, you know. So the highest, the best of the inventions, the best of the discoveries, the best of the writing, the musicology, grammar, Ayurveda, yoga, Panchatantra, philosophy, you name it, you name everything you will find was written in Kashmir. And no wonder, I mean, people after doing, that's why Shankaracharya walked from the south and went there, Rishi Kashyap walked from south and went there, because for whatever reason, I think it was the apex body of research and apex body of knowledge and wisdom. And that's why Sharda is, they worship Sharda and Shiva. Shiva, the philosophical Shiva, the yogi Shiva, not the ritualist part of Shiva, you know, more academic part of Shiva they worship, and Sharda, which is Saraswati. You know, so these are the two, one god and goddess they believe in, and the entire philosophy around it. So which means the best of the minds from India went there. And when I started researching, I realized that Kashmir indeed was the first Silicon Valley of the first millennia. It was the knowledge center of the world. That's why people came to invade and loot it. Nobody goes and invades and loots an empty village or a poor village. That's why they came. So they came primarily to loot the knowledge. And then when these people came, then they started converting them. They made 10 commandments they made for Kashmiri Hindus. It was 100% Hindu population. And they said you can't put tilak, you can't ride a horse, you can't use a talwar, and you can't keep arms, and you can't lock your doors. There were 10 commandments. So they disarmed them, right? And then the exodus began. Yeah, in my book, in my film, you will see a lot of things, which the people don't know in this country at all. Even Kashmiris don't know what you'll see in my film. Kashmiri Pandits don't know so many things. So there were 7 exodus. But 7, yeah, so far. And the 7th, every time they went back, but the 7th time they couldn't. In fact, the earlier exodus, they were trampled, and then these Sufi people, Sufis are not what our Prime Minister popularizes, saying Sufi, Sufi, Sufi. That's not what Sufis were, These are the Fakir Sufis in Rajasthan who are like they are like the 100th or the millionth photocopy of the original document. So they have nothing to do with the real Sufi, this thing. Sufis were the soldiers of these Muslim kings. And they were the soldiers, and they would trample Hindus, under their feet, and they would eat their flesh. They will cut them and they'll eat their flesh.
Are you serious?
I mean, you go to Jammu and Kashmir library in Srinagar, pick up the book which is written by Araki's son, his father's biography. I'm quoting exactly from there.
Unbelievable.
So now all these things we don't know. So there were 7 exodus, but Abhinav, what hit me, because at the end of the day, I'm not a documentary maker. I have to tell a story. Okay, to tell a story, you have to, what I feel emotionally, I have to tell. Like in this film, Sastry's film, Right to Truth became my mantra. Similarly, here I'll tell you what became the mantra to write this film was. I believe they had the 8th exodus also. And the 8th exodus wasn't done only by Islamic terrorists, the so-called. It was collectively done that we deleted them from our minds. How we delete it? Yes, we raise, Kashmiri Pandit, when it comes to social media, everybody shows a lot of concern. Okay, but nothing has happened actually. Nothing has happened. Everything has been just whitewashing. Nothing has actually happened. Because we think Kashmir is somebody else's problem. We have isolated Kashmir in our mind. If somebody can scan people's mind in India, I can guarantee you that Northeast and Kashmir will have a big khai between them. They won't be as integrated as Delhi or West Bengal or Bihar or Maharashtra or Karnataka or Tamil Nadu. I can guarantee if somebody does a scientific scanning, every Indian feels that Northeast and Kashmir are 2 different countries. It has happened because a lot of people are party to this. Politicians, number 1, all the politicians. Number 2, media. Media has always misreported. They have hidden for their agenda. And especially the thought leaders and intellectuals and all these people who talk about secularism and blah, 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 blah. What kind of secularism are they talking about? I'll just give you one incident. Okay. In 1988, and this incident will tell you exactly how Kashmir was governed. In 1988, in Kashmir, in their new complex of High Court, they built Gandhiji's statue, Mahatma Gandhi's statue.
Okay.
And India's Chief Justice of India, R.S. Pathak, was supposed to inaugurate it after 2 days.
Okay.
Then the Bar Association lawyers, they started protesting. They said, we cannot have Gandhi in our complex.
Why?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. And the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Shri Farooq Abdullah, cancelled that program. And Mr. Pathak, the Chief Justice of India, had to cancel his visit to Kashmir, and Gandhi's statue was never installed.
Amazing. I had,
Not only
again,
that,
no idea.
not over as yet. Immediately after that, the guy who was leading that protest, Mr. Farooq Abdullah, gave him a ticket from Srinagar constituency for member of parliament. Now, जो लोग secularism की दुहाई देते हैं, and what can be a better icon of secularism in this country than Mahatma Gandhi? Now, they wanted to send the same person who does not let Mahatma Gandhi's statue be installed to represent Kashmir in Parliament of India. And I mean, I don't know what to tell you after this.
Words fail me. You know, despite everything that we read and all, these facts still, I think, end up startling us. So much has been hidden and covered up and distorted. So first, okay. So when can we expect this movie?
We were supposed to shoot in March. In fact, I was leaving on the 16th of March, but then 18th March, in fact, they announced that from 18th March, there will be lockdown. So we had to postpone it. Then we tried to shoot in August, then September, then October. But now finally we are shooting in December.
December.
Yeah, December we are shooting the film. So hopefully next year, mid next year, you will get to see the film. Yeah.
And the inevitable question, Vivek, when can we expect the book on the movie?
This book I want to write. And I seriously want to write, and it's going to take me some time and a lot of courage to write this. Because this book is not going to be about, and I know what I'm going to write. See, for almost a year and a half, we traveled all over India. What I decided was that we have no documentation of the victims of tomorrow. If you say genocide, you will say what genocide, what happened, except for 3-4 very popular incidents on internet, you know, with various interpretations. You won't find anything concrete, you know. And most of them are written by the involved parties. So I said, by now in any country, if there is a genocide or semi-genocide or exodus, then it's a government's duty, any democratic government's duty, to form a tribunal and call all the victims on camera, uninterrupted. They have to record their testimonials, like war crimes are recorded.
Right.
Any civilized country would do that. So this is one of the reasons we are not a civilized country, is that we don't do these kind of things, you know. So I said, let us do it with whatever resources we have. So I traveled everywhere, Jammu, Kashmir. I spoke to even Muslim victims, Jammu, Pune, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, wherever they are. Then USA, Canada, UK, Germany, South Africa, all these places. We were about to go this May to New Zealand and Australia. We couldn't, but we'll go immediately after finishing the film in February or sometime. So far we have recorded long, means they're 6-hour long, 7-hour long interviews, you know, non-stop, of more than 575 first generation victims. First generation victims means the criteria was that somebody in your family was murdered, raped, cut into pieces, stuff like that, or children were killed. That is first generation. Not that I heard my aunts and this and happened. Not that. So the first generation people we identified, we travel all over the world. In fact, a lot of people helped us in that. So when we were doing this, especially in US and UK and all these places, you won't believe it, for 45 days, Pallavi, me, my son and my crew, my cameraman, sound people, we traveled there. Our eyes were swollen because the entire day we used to do 2 interviews a day. Sometimes we would meet 6-7 people in the evening and then they would chat, and we recorded that also, the group roundtable discussions or over the dinner discussions and all. I just kept crying. 45 days, non-stop. I mean, in the morning, I normally go for a walk. My eye used to be swollen and I had to put ice, sometimes milk or some things like that, you know, Pallavi and I, and we non-stop cried. We were not crying because it was about killings. We were not crying because somebody's mother was cut into pieces or father was cut into pieces. I'm a filmmaker, storyteller, so I think I'm more emotionally evolved. So these things I can control. I was crying because it was self-pity. I was saying, I am such an aware person, and how come I didn't know about this? Whatever I knew was nothing. I said, how come I didn't know about this? And that feeling is such a pathetic feeling, Abhinav, I can't tell you, is the worst feeling in the world. Is the worst feeling. Knowing how somebody was killed, you can live with that, this happened. But this is something you can't resolve because you take a lot of pride in your knowledge, knowing, yes, I am up to date with the social politics of this country. I know what happened. Kashmir, oh, I know what happened. This is the politics. This is how Exodus happened. There was Islamic terrorism. And worse, what worse? They must have killed some people in 50 pieces. They cut a woman into two halves. They cut this. No, to know that it was happening right in front of you and you had no idea about it.
This is so tragic because I am old enough to remember when the Exodus happened, and I remember reading in the newspapers, and it died out in a matter of a few months. This is January 1990. So if people don't remember, this is when the VP Singh government was in power, and people found it convenient to pin the blame on that government, forgetting that what had led to the situation. And then there was a period of political turmoil. Then the VP Singh government fell, the Chandrasekhar government came into power, and all of those things. But still, of all the accounts that I have browsed or read so far, unfortunately, many of them take a very, very slanted view on things that happened. So I personally am looking forward to both the movie and then when you get down to writing the book also. So Vivek, I'll thank you once again. This has been a terrific, wonderful interview. You have talked about not just this book, Who Killed Shastri, but also on several things that I think were an unexpected surprise and delight. So on behalf of Indic Book Club, Indic Academy, I'd like to thank you once more. And people, the book is Who Killed Shastri, from the maker of the major motion picture, The Tashkent Files, by Vivek Agnihotri. It's been published by Bloomsbury. If you can, if you can make out this book, this is the book.
Yeah,
so
no,
please go and buy it, read it, review it, talk about it, discuss it, share it with people.
I'll show it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Vivek. I was listening to your passion. Your passion always inspires people. And man, you're all over the place. You just finished Bhopal. Now you're going to Uttarakhand. You really, I don't know where you get this energy from, but it's amazing. Really, really nice. So now what's happening in Uttarakhand? You're going to start shooting Kashmir Files?
No, I'm going for recce to a few places, and then December we start shooting.
I see. So you're not, I mean, last time you had trouble getting permissions from in Kashmir itself, right? So you're going to...
No, I'm shooting in Kashmir also, but first I'm shooting in Uttarakhand and then I'll shoot in Kashmir.
Otherwise, you might have to go to Georgia or something.
See, a lot of people say, yes, we are integrated and yes, 370 and all those things. Yes, I know that this government is doing a lot of stuff like universities come under central government and lots of things are happening. But still, it's Kashmir remains exactly how it was 1.5 years ago, pre-5th of August, because it's as troubled as ever, and that is worrisome. So let's see.
Yeah, I mean, now that people can go and buy land there, I think we need a lot of people from the other parts of India to settle down there, I guess.
Yeah.
That kind of integration has to happen.
Yeah, it will change only when we actually go there and people start moving a lot in that. Right now it's isolated, abandoned. So it has to integrate, and government can't integrate it. We, the citizens of India, will have to integrate it back into India.
Good, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
And I wish the entire Indic family in advance for happy Diwali and happy all the festivals which are going to come.
Thank you, Vivek, and from us also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.